Well, hi again. Welcome to my latest video. Well, this is actually a follow-up to my previous video in which I did a full review of the NEXIGO N1000 Iris webcam. Actually, that is what I'm recording this video on right now, the actual NEXIGO Iris. What do you think? Picture looks pretty good. It's actually doing it in 4K. I'm using OBS, but you use any application you want actually. But I want to show you some of the advanced features that I didn't show last time, things that I left out in the interest of time that I figured you would learn on your own or with other videos that were provided by NEXIGO. Well, I got a lot of questions, so I decided I should include those in a follow-up video, and here we go. And if you stick around to the end, you'll see a feature or two that I have never seen before in a webcam, at least not a single webcam. So stick around and watch out for those. Well, let's start out with the feature that I already have turned on right now, and that one is the auto tracking feature. There's also a feature called auto framing, and I have both of them turned on. The only one that really matters in this particular scenario, however, is the auto tracking, because I'm a single individual in the picture here. If I had multiple people here, and I did think about getting a big picture of myself to put next to me and see if it would work, it probably would, to see if it would automatically center both of us, which is what it does in the auto framing mode. But the auto tracking is still great because it'll put the individual, which is what I'm doing right now, into the center of the picture at all times, unless we use one of the later features I'll talk about in a little bit. So let's test it out. I'm centered right now, right? What happens if I move off center? Let me go to the left a little bit here. The camera just moved and corrected that and put me back in the center. If I go to the right, I'm centered again the way I started out, but if I go all the way over here, what does it do now? It moves over to center me again. And that will also work if I go a little bit up and I go a little bit down. And if I come back, it'll center again. A nifty little feature, don't you think? The most interesting thing about this is you can still use the controls on the remote to center yourself differently. So for example, if I wanted to zoom in, I would click the little plus button here, and I could zoom in closer than where I am. And it will still be in auto tracking, but now it'll reframe the picture to that size. And the same thing with the minus. And if I want to be off center, I can use the arrow keys and get myself off center, and it will keep that. Even if I go ahead and play around with it, it'll try to get back to that same offset. Okay? So that's a pretty good feature. Well, what's the next feature I want to talk about? A pretty interesting one, so let me show you. Okay, let's talk about presets. This camera supports up to 10 presets controlled by the remote. They use the number pad, the 1 through 0, those 10 pads there, in order to come up with a preset that you may choose to have set up for the framing. It only controls the framing. It doesn't control the colors or any of those other features. You have to have the tracking turned off in order to set one up, which is what I have right now on this camera. But let's say I want to frame it for my normal default video creation, where I put myself a little bit further away from the camera, and I put myself off to 1/3. So let me go ahead and set up using the particular scroll keys and the zoom in and out to see if I can do that. Let me zoom out a little bit first. And then I'll push myself over to one side. Let's say it's right about there. And I want that to be a preset for whatever reason, okay? So there's a preset button that I would have to hit. That's right over here. I hit this button, and then the number that I want it to be, let's make it preset number 1 for me. So if I hit it, and then I hit the 1, it doesn't give me much of an indication, but it is set. So now if I go ahead and I redo it differently, let me zoom out a little bit. Let me scroll over back to where I was. Let me get myself pretty much back the way I was before. Okay. And now if I just go ahead, since I assigned it to preset 1 and I pick the 1, what happens? It automatically brings me back to that preset. And if I have other presets, I could do the same thing to whatever format that I want the picture to be framed in. So those are presets, pretty little handy feature if you want to have a setting that you like to be able to reuse it over and over again. And this camera will remember it because it actually has a non-volatile configuration memory where it can actually save all of this information, including the regular configuration that you would do. Okay, now let's talk about a feature I've never seen before in a webcam, unless you set up two webcams and you then blended them together later on, or you had a video capture card that you could use to do this feature. Well, the camera itself is doing it here. I only got one cable connected to it, an HDMI. And let me go ahead and say I want to do a presentation. So let me reframe to a presentation that I have up here. So I have a screen here. Let's say I was going to do a presentation on that screen. That happens to be my second monitor, but it could be a screen on the wall too. And I want that to be the main thing that people see, but I also want them to see me in a picture-in-picture mode without activating features through my computer. All I have to do is hit the button for doing picture-in-picture, which is the second button from the top on the right, and I'll hit that. And what does it do? It automatically opens up a picture-in-picture. So the button that I hit was this one right here, the second one from the top on the right, and that's the picture-in-picture. You could also go through the menus and do it as well. And it opened this up. And what is it doing to my little picture here, the picture-in-picture? Well, it's automatically tracking it. So tracking was automatically turned on into that little picture because it assumes that that picture-in-picture is an image of you or somebody else that you want to be shown during the presentation. So this is a quick way of doing it, and that's a feature built right into the camera. I didn't have to change the computer settings whatsoever. I'm capturing it the same way that I did before, and I could turn it off by hitting that same button once again, and we're back to how I originally framed it. So that completes my quick little video on a couple of the key features that I want to show you that I left out of my original review. They're interesting, and they add a lot of value to this camera, so hopefully you get something out of it. There are other lesser features that are available, and if enough people show interest in that, I can go ahead and make a video covering those as well. Or if you want to learn a bit more detail about the configuration menus.